Hey guys, it's Super and welcome to PHP tutorial number 23. Today we're going to be looking at default parameters for functions. So last tutorial we looked at parameters, which I didn't explain very well. Although, just if you feel I didn't explain it very well, but you don't feel asking me a question will help, or leaving me a comment or whatever. I do feel like I explained it better in the C++ tutorials, and really the only difference between the C++ tutorials and the PHP one, or the syntax, sorry, is the fact that you have to supply a return type, which I won't talk about now. But in place of the return type in the C++ tutorials, just put the keyword function. So try looking at those if you felt like I explained it badly. Otherwise, do ask me. It's better to ask me first if you feel you want to. But if you don't feel you want to, try looking at C++ ones. But anyway, default function arguments. Really cool feature for any programming language. Any programming language. Sorry, screwed my tongue up there. Because it allows us to save ourselves a lot of time whenever we call the function if there's a common value that we'll always, or most of the time we'll use for one parameter, or several parameters even. We can just supply it as a default parameter, and then on most of the function calls we don't have to supply that parameter because it's already supplied. The value is already supplied as the default. Whilst on the others we can still supply a different value if we need to. So let's take a look at this now quickly. Right, that's from last. That shouldn't still be there. Oops, sorry guys, doesn't matter too much. So here again we're just using that calculate total value function, but there's one key difference here. And that is that the first one is that the t variable for tax has been changed to 1.175, and I'll show you why in a sec. But the second is that in the function declaration, in the function header, the tax variable, the tax parameter isn't just $tax, it's now $tax equals 1.155, and that is exactly how you create a default parameter. You just type the parameter name, and then you type equals, and then you type the default value. Okay, and then the rest of the function body is the same for now. And then you can see here, I'm just going to call calculate total value with only two parameters, with only two arguments. Sorry, whereas even though there's three parameters, and that's because in this case I want to supply the price and I want to supply the quantity. But I'm happy with a default value of 1.155 for the tax, so I'm not going to bother adding that in because it's default there, so I don't need to. So what's the point in wasting typing time, And that's the coolest thing about default parameters. But also, if I feel I need to change the tax from 1.155 to something higher, like 1.175, then I can easily supply the three usual arguments, so I can choose to supply that third argument as well if I want to. And let's take a look at what this yields. Okay, so simply 57.75 for the first one, we've seen that already, and just 58.75 for the second one, because there we supplied a 2% higher tax. Okay, so and we supplied the tax variable, and that's the reason why the tax variable was different from the default value here, just so I could show you that. Now, the only important thing you need to know about default parameters is that once you start using default parameters, you then need to use default parameters for every other variable. So something like this, where the first variable doesn't have a default parameter and it must be supplied in the function call. Second one does have a default parameter, but then the third one doesn't. This wouldn't work, because if you think about it, if you call this function and you don't want to supply the value for blah2, you just want to use a default argument, then you would type 5, and you'd and then you wouldn't want to supply the value for blah2, But in order to get to blah 3, you have to put a value for blah 2 as well, okay? So you then end up having to do that, and what's the point in having the default parameter in the end? Because the default value, sorry, because in the end it's just you're even if you don't want to supply the value for blah 2, to get to blah 3, which must be supplied no matter what, you have to supply a value for blah 2, because if you don't, there's no way to bypass blah 2. You just have to. That's the rule. So for that reason, this function will not work. Okay. So just remember, once you start using them, you have to use them. So something like this would work. Now, myfunc is a valid function. Okay, so that's really simple. That's as simple as default parameters get. So anyways, guys, over and out.